So, thank you, Claudio, and thank you, the organizers, for inviting me. So, in order to provide an interpretation for each mutation in terms of their use for molecular drug susceptibility testing, within the RESECT-TB, we developed, or at least we are working on the development of an evaluation process that should allow to grade the mutation according to their association with the drug-resistant phenotype. So this process has been driven by the experts and the community, and within the RESECT-TB, we are considering as valid any mutation producing a statistically higher MIC when compared to the reference strain that is, in our case, H37RV. We have three main criteria for this validation. We are considering the epidemiological association of the mutation with the resistant phenotype. We are using laboratory evidence and, whenever available, clinical evidence. Then every single mutation is going to be associated with a grading score, and I'm going to show you how this works. So basically, we decided to have 5 main categories based on the level of association between the mutation and the resistant phenotype. And we defined this classification strategy starting from a statistical approach that can be further improved by the consensus within the expert panels. And for this grading system, we are using 4 criteria. We have homoplasy, the distribution of the mutation within resistant and susceptible isolates, the MIC values, and functional genetic studies. So most of the data available regards to the distribution of the mutation in resistant and susceptible isolates. So we decided to start from this data, and we used literature data to calculate the frequency of each single mutation in resistant and susceptible isolates. Then we calculated also likelihood ratio and odd ratio, together with associated p-values and 95% confidence intervals. Why we used likelihood and odd ratios? First of all, because relying on sensitivity and specificity alone usually leads to an overestimate of the strength of the association, and because these statistical indexes represent an independent measure of the association between the mutation and the phenotype. And most importantly, they are not relying on the prevalence of the mutation. And then we use both them because one is more commonly used in the field of genomics, whereas the other is more common in the clinical field. So I'm not going into the details of the statistics of this, but I think that most of us is used to know these formulas where sensitivity and specificity are used to calculate these statistical indexes, but these formulas can be rewritten to include the probability. So this allows us to use these indexes to measure the association between a mutation and a phenotype. And now we have nice numbers that are somehow quantify the level of association for each mutation with the resistant phenotype, and we need to interpret these numbers. So we decided to do not reinvent the wheel. In evidence-based medicine, there are already thresholds to interpret likelihood ratio, and we adapted these thresholds to our problem. So starting with the p-values, if the p-value associated with these statistical indexes is not significant, we rated the mutations as indeterminate because we cannot rule out if the mutation is associated or not with the phenotype we are observing. Then if the mutation is showing a value, a likelihood ratio or an odd ratio below 1, the mutation is not associated with resistance. When we have values between 1 and 5, we have minimal confidence mutations, and this means that we are in a kind of gray zone because there is no certainty again on this association, and we need more information to rule out the role of this mutation. When the values are between 5 and 10, we are considering the mutation as moderate confidence associated with the resistance. And also in this case, this means that the mutation is associated with resistance, but probably there is something more behind this, and more information could help us ruling out this situation. And finally, we have high confidence mutation where the value is above 10, and basically the mutation is associated with resistance. So to evaluate this theoretical approach, we used a well-controlled data set. We started with a preselected list of mutations derived from the FIRES tool that includes almost the most commonly known mutations already known to be associated with resistance. And we derived the frequency of these mutations using the knowledge synthesis TBDR database. That is probably the most recently published database in the TB field. And most importantly, it has a strict criteria for data inclusion, so we are really working with a controlled system. So just to give you an idea, the total number of MTB isolates included for this analysis ranged from nearly 600 isolates for some drugs up to 9,500 for other drugs, depending on the data available in the database. And this is what we have as an output. The list of mutation was around 50 mutations, so we have 30 high confidence mutations, and as you can see here, you have the list of the drugs, the list of the genes, and the list of the mutations. For each mutation, we have the sensitivity, the specificity, and the accuracy, and I just highlighted a few of them to make some examples. We have the 315 for the isoniazid, the 531 for RPOB, and so this is really what we expect to have in the high confidence list of mutation. Then we have a few moderate confidence mutations, and here we start to see some of less represented mutations, and some of the disputed mutations, such as the 533 mutation in RPOB, that we know that can have an MIC close to the breakpoint. And in this rating system, when we grade the mutation as moderate, we understand that there is something more we can learn about this mutation. And I have to say that in the TBDR database, we are not stratifying the phenotypic results according to the testing method. So we know that we can have differences if we test a strain in liquid or solid media. And then we have also minimal confidence mutations, and here we have some rare mutation for ethambutol, but also the 516Y for rifampicin, or other mutations that we know, again, that can have different MIC values according to the testing method used. And what is what has been also tested is the performance of this approach on mutations that we know that are not associated with resistance, and this is the case of the S95T polymorphism in the GRA gene. And as you can see here, the mutation is rated as not associated with resistance. So in conclusion, we developed a statistical approach that is suitable for automated initial classification of the mutation and can be easily improved by integrating homoplasy data, MSC values, and data from functional genetic studies. We already performed a comprehensive literature systematic review to identify not all the existing, but most of the existing association between genetic mutations and phenotypic DST. And this systematic review finally included the raw genotype-phenotype correlation data from nearly 500 papers, and we already analyzed all this data. And of course, this process is going to be updated and revised as the knowledge in the mechanism of resistance increases. And finally, I would like to thank the people that helped me in this work in the past 3 months, basically, and all the collaborators of the RESEC-TB. Thank you for your attention. This should be included in the ResectDB platform, so this will be available within the platform.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.